Friends, in this video we will discuss on implementation of e-invoice from 1st October 2020, which is mandatory by notification 61/2020 on those registered taxpayers whose turnover or aggregate turnover is more than 500 crores. Aggregate turnover, we all know, is the PAN based turnover including stock transfers, including exempt supplies and non-GST supplies. So, for example, you are registered in 32 states in the country. Your turnover for sale to outside parties is 400 crores. You are in the business of dairy product sales. Your sale of milk is 500 crores, which is exempt, but your sale of other dairy products is 50 crores, which is taxable, and your stock transfer is 150 crores. So, although your sales to third parties is 400 crores, yet including stock transfer, your turnover on all the GST registrations is more than 500 crores, and your total turnover pan India is more than 500 crores. E-invoice would be applicable to you and needs to be generated from 1st October 2020. Friends, this is also half the story. Mind that by Rule 48, any person on whom e-invoice is mandatory, and if he does not generate the e-invoice, and if he gives any invoice other than an e-invoice, the same shall not tantamount to a tax invoice, and therefore the recipient of such invoice would not be eligible to input tax credit on such invoices. Therefore, for all companies even less than 500 crores aggregate turnover, for them also it is important to understand what is e-invoice and what are the prerequisites of e-invoice, because in case they get an invoice from a supplier which should have generated e-invoice but has not generated e-invoice, the input tax credit of such recipient would be denied also, and as it would not be a tax invoice under section 16 subsection 2, there would be a non-compliance with the ITC norms. So, friends, it is very important therefore to all registered taxpayers to understand what is an e-invoice, and while this video we would try to decipher e-invoices, the e-invoice schema, how your user needs to be trained in e-invoice, how e-invoice schema needs to be studied, what are the various critical issues in e-invoice, how would a e-invoice number look like, how would a QR code look like, what are the prerequisites of a QR code, and all of these intricacies of e-invoice we would discuss in this video. Before starting, it is very important to understand that now the GST IT ecosystem consists of 3 portals which do not or which interact with each other to a very limited extent. First is the GST portal where you file your returns and do the reconciliations with the counterparty 2A. Second is the e-invoice portal, NIC portal, on which you do your e-invoice compliances, and now there would be a third portal called the IRP, Invoice Registration Portal, on which you would require to do your e-invoicing. It is very important to understand here that all these three need to be integrated by the industry in one place, so that all the data of these three portals can be interplayed with each other, right. Therefore, during assessments or in case a management requires a certain report which requires interaction of these three portals, the data would be available at ease with the taxpayer. For example, in case of assessment, the assessing officer would not require e-invoice details or e-invoice dump. What he would require is a reconciliation between e-invoice, your GSTR1 and the e-way bills generated. Friends, the GST ecosystem today does not provide these kind of big data analytical reports, and all of this would have to be done by an integrated ASP GSP solution, where various kinds of data would be stored of all these three portals, and various kind of reports and artificial intelligence tools would interplay and provide analysis and make the taxpayer scrutiny ready for GST authorities. So now let us understand the flow of data in e-invoice, which you see on your screen above. First is the seller's part. If you see the left hand side of this PPT, you would see seller, that block where seller is mentioned. Now this is the trade and industry, that is yourself. There would be no change at the seller or the ERP's end or the front end. The seller who is generating the data or who is punching in the data for the invoice would continue to punch such data in the ERP, say SAP or Microsoft Navision or One World System or Tally or Oracle. So the user keeps on punching the e-invoice details like counterparty GSTIN, counterparty name, counterparty address, billing details, shipping details, dispatch details, taxable value, taxes, item description, HSN code, etc., etc. For this, what is required is a detailed understanding of the schema as per notification 60/2020, which I would take you through in the later part of this video. It is important today for trade and industry to make the user trained, that is to make the person who is punching in the invoice data, he should be trained with do's and don'ts. For example, he should be trained that, gentlemen, your item description after e-invoicing should not be more than 100 characters. If it goes more than 100 characters, then there would be an error at the IRP level and there would be a pain to understand why this error is there. So we will discuss in detail how to study the e-invoice schema or the INV1 format, which is notified wide notification 60/2020. Mind that the schema is not an IT domain, it is a tax or a finance domain. The tax people have to understand in detail that schema so as to ensure seamless implementation of e-invoice. So once the user punches in this data, in invoice data in its ERP, then the JSON file is created by the ERP. It is sent to the IRP. IRP, there are 10 portals which are registered or notified wide notification 69/2019 e-invoice gst.gov.in 1 2 3 4 5 to 10. So this JSON file gets uploaded in the IRP. the IRP does three things. It digitally signs this entire JSON file. Now, what do you mean by digital signature? Digital signature does not mean there is a person who is signing over there. It means that the JSON file is encrypted by the IRC. Why does signature? So that this JSON file cannot be tampered with, and if it is tampered with, then the JSON file becomes invalid and the e-invoice becomes invalid. Second, it would generate the IRN, a 64-digit invoice reference number. Mind that this is just a IRN reference number. It does not partake the nature of your invoice number. Your invoice number continues to be your ERP document number. IRN is in addition to this invoice number. Third, it generates a QR code, a hash function which you even see in your e-way bill. This QR code is made up of 8 informations. We would take you through what is this QR code. It is jumbled up, this 8 information, and it is jumbled up in the form of a quick response code. Now this JSON file is pushed back to the ERP in a JSON format. The ERP reverse integrates this JSON into the ERP and it shows the PDF version of the e-invoice with the IRN, with the QR code and with the encrypted digital signature of the IRP. Now you come to the third block, the GST system. Simultaneously with the generation of the e-invoice, the IRP also auto-populates this invoice data in your GSTR1 and generates your output tax liability immediately. So now the commissionerate would know your output tax liability immediately. They don't have to wait for filing of the GSTR1. Now the fourth part, the buyer's part. The IRP simultaneously also pushes in this data to the counterparty GSTR2A. So your GSTR2A also get, or the counterparty GSTR2A also gets auto populated the moment you generate an e-invoice. So this, friends, is the total interface or the ecosystem under which the data would flow. Now we come to the legal aspects and the understanding of the intricacies of the e-invoicing. Rule 48 was amended by notification 68/2019, whereby form GST INV1 came into being, and the GST INV1, which is the e-invoice schema, has been now notified finally by notification 60/2020 dated 30th July 2020. 10 IRP portals were notified by notification 69/2019. While notification 70 amended by superseded by notification 30/2020 and further superseded by notification 61/2020, the notification notified that e-invoice would be mandatory on all registered taxpayers whose aggregate turnover is more than 500 crores. Friends, there is another very important notification which generally skips our attention. While notification 72/2019 as amended by notification or superseded by notification 14/2020, it was notified that QR code would be mandatory for taxpayers with a turnover of more than 500 crore. Please listen very carefully. QR code is mandatory for taxpayers with a registered with a turnover of more than 500 crore even on B2C invoices from 1st October 2020. So, even though e-invoice would not be applicable for B2C invoices, yet your ERP or your GSP should be so implemented that from 1st October 2020, your B2C invoices also would display the QR code made up of 8 information which I would take you through. This is very important and generally is skipping the attention of trade and industry. Friends, now we will come on to the schema which I have been telling you time and again. Now, what is this schema? This schema is actually the details which would be put in your e-invoices, right? I would make you understand today how to read this schema, and while it would seem very complicated or an IT domain, yet for finance and tax professional to implement e-invoice seamlessly, it is very important for you to understand what is this schema. So, important first is to understand the cardinal functions. You see, there are 4 cardinal functions: permutations and combinations. First, the function starting with 0 is optional. Second, the function starting with 1 is mandatory. Third, the function ending with 1 cannot be repeated. And last, the function ending with n can be repeated as many times. So, if your cardinal function is 0.1, it means it is an optional field, but it cannot be repeated again. For example, your PO number, it may be optional, but it cannot be repeated in another e-invoice. If the function starts with 0 and ends with n, it means it is an optional field, but it can be repeated again and again. For example, an old invoice reference number, there can be various credit notes linked to that number. If the function, cardinal function in the table is 1.1, it means it is a mandatory field. For example, document number, which is your invoice number, it is a mandatory field and it cannot be repeated again in another invoice. And if it is 1.n, it means it is a mandatory field, but it can be repeated n number of times, which means maybe the old invoice number for the purpose of your credit notes. So, with this understanding, let us go to the first table of the e-invoice schema. You see on your screen table number 1. Table number 1, you see the cardinal function is 1.1, which means this table, which consists of 8 line items, the table itself is mandatory. You cannot skip this table. There are 4 forms, form A, B, C, D. You may choose any form for e-invoicing, but basic details are mandatory in all these forms. And 1.1, it means this cannot be repeated again. Basic details in one e-invoice cannot be repeated in another e-invoice. Basic details are specific to one invoice. Now you come to 1.0, right? It shows the version. Again, the cardinal function is 1.1, which means it is mandatory, cannot be repeated, right? It is the e-invoice schema. Next, 1.1 is the IRN. Again, the cardinal function is 1.1, which means it is mandatory and it cannot be repeated in another invoice. However, the supplier will not supply it. You see the header for basic details, the last column. It means the supplier will not supply, the IRP will supply this IR, and yet it is mandatory and cannot be repeated again. So, if you have any understanding gap, please refer to the last column, that is the basic details for the understanding. Now 1.2, supplier type code. Again the cardinal function is 1 ... means it is mandatory, cannot be repeated. What is supplier code? It means whether supply type code, it means you have to choose one out of the 7. Either it is a B2B invoice or B2C invoice, or it is export without payment, export with payment, SEZ with payment, SEZ without payment, or a deemed export transaction, right? Out of these 7 only you have to push the data into the IRP. One again very important thing is that your ERP or your ASP GSP solution should be such that it should not push the B2C invoices to the IRP. If you push B2C invoices to the IRP, it would generate an error. Also, if you push a lot of B2C invoices to IRP, the IRP may block the GSTI and temporarily form generation of e-invoice. So, this the GSP or the ERP has to be very clear about. Next 1.3 is the document type. Again the function is 1 ... It means it can be INV, that is invoice, CRN means credit note, DBN means debit note. As you know, e-invoice is mandatory only for invoice, debit note and credit note, not for delivery challan or for bill of supply, etc. Therefore, you have to choose either of the 3. Now we come to 1.6, additional currency 0 ... which means it is an optional field, although it is in the mandatory table, yet in the mandatory table 1.6 is an optional item, yet it cannot be repeated again, right? Once used it cannot be repeated. So, it may be an export invoice where you would want to disclose the payable in the foreign exchange also. So, you can choose this field if you want to. Similarly, reverse charge, yes or no. Whether the invoice is applicable for reverse charge, you have to say Y or N. It is an optional field, but it cannot be repeated in the whole invoice again, right? So friends, this way there are various tables in the schema which you must go through, and similarly you have to make first, today is the time when you have to make a checklist of do's and don'ts in e-invoice for your users who are punching in the e-invoice data in the ERP, because if there is garbage in, there would certainly be garbage out. This do's and don'ts, naturally it cannot be in the schema format, you have to make it in a simple user readable language, and you have to make the users very clear, gentlemen, you have to punch in this data mandatorily, and this is the meaning of this data. Mind that friends, till today the users have been very liberally handled. The users have been putting in various kind of fields at the length of the fields they require, but today e-invoice makes the invoicing absolutely standardized. In case the user makes a mistake in the standard format, it would generate errors in the IRP and it would be a hassle during implementation. From 1st October 2020, if we want our invoicing to continue, then user training in this e-invoice schema is very important. You see, similarly, second table is for document period. It is an optional table, you may or may not enter it. Third table is preceding documents contract reference table, that is the purchase order number or the contract number, optional table, right? Fourth table, table number 4 is the supplier information 1 ... which means it is a mandatory table and it cannot be repeated again in the whole e-invoice, right? Supplier legal name, supplier trade name, GSTIN of the supplier, address of the supplier, etc. What is again important is you understand and you tell your users the string. For example, supplier address 1, the string length is 100. So your user should put up the details in such a way that the string length does not go more than 100. Or your master should be created or modified in such a way that address field 1 should not be more than 100 characters. So all of this initially when implementing e-invoice, this data sanitization is also very important based on your schema. Now again table number 5 is the recipient information 1.1, which means it is mandatory. Table 6 pay information, if you want to put in your bank details etc., it is optional. Table 7 delivery information, ship to details, optional. Table 10 any other extra information is optional, right? However, again please note table number 10.1, while the table 10 is optional, yet if you choose the 10 number table, then you have to mandatorily put in 10.1, which is the tax scheme, whether it is GSTable or non-GSTable. So in an optional table there can be mandatory field, in a mandatory table there can be optional field, which you must note. Again table 11 is optional, table 12 is optional again, right? And there are various other tables which one have to understand. So friends, 61/2020 is the notification which has notified implementation of e-invoice for registered taxpayers with an aggregate turnover of more than 500 crores. Now we discuss one by one the various critical issues and issues to understand in e-invoice. There are 4 types of documents which are covered in e-invoice: B2B invoices, credit note, debit note and export invoices, right? Bill of supply, delivery challan is not covered under e-invoice. So for job work, if you are sending in material, you are creating delivery challan, you have to create an e-way bill, but you do not generate e-invoice. Similarly, if you are supplying milk, which is an exempt product, you have to generate e-way bill possibly, but e-invoice should not be generated for such bill of supply. B2B invoices are presently covered under e-invoice, export invoices are also covered, B2C is not covered under e-invoicing as of now, and it is to be noted that B2C invoices should not be pushed into the IRP portal, else it would generate an error and may block the GSTIN. E-invoice is not required for import of goods or services on bill of entry or import of services invoices. 5 types of persons are exempt from e-invoice. Number 1 is SEZ taxpayers, SEZ located taxpayers, goods transport agents, the businesses which are in the business of transportation of passengers, insurance banking companies including non-banking financial institutions, suppliers of services of admission or exhibition to cinematographic films, that is PVR theatres etc. However, if a GTA is also doing warehousing business and if the turnover of the total business is more than 500 crores, it is to be noted that e-invoice is mandatory. Although GTA is exempt from e-invoicing, yet warehousing is included in e-invoicing. Therefore, if the aggregate turnover of the business as a whole is more than 500 crores, e-invoicing is mandatory for such a taxpayer. IRP, as I said, is a pass-through portal. It would store the e-invoice data only for 24 hours. So you would ask me a question, how would IRP do a deduplication check? Whether the same invoice has been previously punched in the IRP or not. Mind that all this data may not be stored in IRP, but it would be stored in a central repository, and from there the immediate IRP would send it to the data to the central repository, and it would do a deduplication check whether the same invoice has been generated by the same taxpayer in the same taxable period and with the same document type, right? Can you customize the e-invoice? Can you put in your company logo? Answer is yes, but it cannot be done on the IRP. It has to be customized at the ERP level. So once you receive the JSON file and make a PDF of it, in your ERP you customize it and put your logo. On your screen you would be seeing this is how an e-invoice IRN number would look like. You can see this 64-digit IRN number. Now one taxpayer asked me a question that whether two-way reconciliation has to be done IRN versus IRN. As of now there is no such requirement, because to put in your IRN number in your purchase register to manually punch is impossible, and even if you scan the QR codes it would be a very tedious task. Therefore, as of now your two-way matching will be done on the basis of the invoice number and not on the basis of IRN number. In case there is an error, the IRP would throw an error, reject the e-invoice data, again it has to be modified and re-uploaded in the IRP. The invoice can be cancelled on the IRP only in 24 hours. If after 24 hours there is a requirement of cancellation of e-invoice, then it has to be cancelled only on the GST portal by making a credit note under section 34. QR code, as we have said, it is a hash function of 8 types of information. First, GSTIN of the supplier. Second, GSTIN of the recipient. Third, invoice number as given by the supplier, not the IRN. IRN is separate. Fourth, date of the e-invoice. Fifth, invoice value, that is the taxable and gross tax. Number of items. The number of items in an e-invoice, that is the number of line items, is restricted to 1000. So for example, your line items is 500, your QR code would have a figure 500. HSN code of the main item, that is the item with the highest taxable value, and last the unique IRN. So all of this would be hashed into one function and it would make up the QR code, right, which would look like this. You can see on your screens. It would be made up of 3 parts. You can see it is this QR code is separated by a red color dot. You see the red colors. So it would be in 3 parts, and if you decrypt this QR code, it would look like this on your screen, right? Can you partially cancel the e-invoice? Answer is no. If you have to cancel, you have to cancel the whole e-invoice at one go. So friends, this is it about the e-invoices which stands as on today, and as we have discussed, the e-invoice schema is very important, user training is very important, ERP and GSP implementation is very important. So if you are doing this with a GSP, your user punches in the data in his ERP, it flows to the GSP, GSP pushes it to the IRP, IRP pushes it back to the GSP after doing deduplication, signing it, QR code generation and IRN generation. Again the GSP pushes it and reverse integrates it with the ERP portal. All of this would take hardly 8 to 10 seconds to happen, and therefore at the user end, to ensure that there is a seamless transition, the finance and tax departments have to make sure that the users are trained and the integration between the ERP and the GSP is seamlessly done by integrating the JSON files between the ERP and the GSP. For any further issues, queries, please do let us know. The connect details are provided in the PPT appended to this. We would be ready to help out in case of any issues. More videos would be coming in on this advanced course under GST. As I said, this is just an intermediate video because of the criticality of implementation of e-invoice for trade and industry on 1st October 2020. Thank you very much.